Hello everybody, welcome. Alan Robson with you, the ghost historian, as ever, taking you for a walk in something that looks so benign. The amount of times I've driven along this road past this building and you think nothing of it. Not that long ago there were a whole pile of other buildings here. We've always known we were not going to be able to get up close and personal with a building, and then I discovered it actually wasn't necessary, because I've found a lot of documentation about this place, and a great many people back in the 1800s and early 1900s said that this whole area was cursed. I'll tell you the stories. You can check them up online if you wish, because all the stories are there that you're going to hear from me today. Now, with respect to this glory of a building, this is a winding house. Now, I know the sign on the top of it says 1946, but it goes back an awful lot longer than that. This is what used to wind up the cage, chock full of men. And I know we see pictures of cages that miners have had filmed since about the 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And you see 3 or 4 guys going down in a cage nice and comfy. Back in those days, as many as 50 to 70 people piled into a cage. And when I tell you what happened regularly in this particular cage, you will grimace and you'll not even want to think about it. When you're asleep in bed tonight, you'll be thinking about what happened in the cage. Now, apart from that, we're on sacred land too, for a whole variety of reasons, because although the sign says Backworth, we're actually part of Holywell here, a sacred site from long before it was Christian. We'll get into that too. We're going to go around here, and then we're taking you down a wagon way that's said to be haunted. Now, for those of you that don't believe in ghosts, that's absolutely fine. You always say make up your own mind. We're going to be stopping off in a few places. Got Sucky. We're going to see if we can get absolutely anything on our trip. It's a proper full-fledged ghost hunt. I'm so tempted to maybe grab the rods, but it's just carrying a lot of glub bits, and we're over stony ground, so it'll just be us and Sucky tonight. We'll see what we get. We've obviously got the necromancer. We'll put that in. We've got another spirit box gadget too. We're going to be toying with that just a little bit. Believe what you want to believe, always. You're the people that decide what's real and what's not. We're going to show you what is absolutely real. You've got to decide about the things that you see. We always say disregard 95% of what you see and look for the 5% that couldn't be anything else. Let's make our way. We're going along here. Now this is, you can't drive along here because it's too like farms and such, but you've got to remember what was here back in the day. There was a row of terraced houses here. There were stables. There was a wash house. There was a little mini engineering works. It looks nothing now, but it was a busy pit. It's known as Phoenix Pit. And old Holywell pit as well. So let's get along. Try to avoid being knocked down, Tony. Let's head along the trail, see how far we get. I know it's late now, but as you can see to the left-hand side, the sun is starting to go down. To be honest, it's one of the more beautiful sunsets tonight. Have you seen this sunset, Tony? Beautiful. Bird on a wire, always a good sign. And let's head. Now, long before this land was classed as Holywell, before it was even named Holywell, a lot of the area around here was considered sacred because of the well. Now, the well no longer exists, but way back, going back as far as 5,000 years, there was sacred waters. Now this was a particular kind of water, you know, like spring water, and people say it has magical properties. Well, the magical property it had in reality was it was fresh, clean water. It wasn't filthy water, and a lot of the waters in the towns, the villages and the cities got tainted with human sewage that was literally oozing everywhere. So to have the Holywell that it became when the Christians arrived, they completely changed the name and said, no, 'tis the Holywell. And then they said, no, it is St. Mary's Well. But it was always, in the old days, the old pagan days, it was classed as a sacred well because you knew you could drink the water and you wouldn't get sick. And if that's your choice of two, you'd go sacred every time. Just along here, there's a fence that takes us around the site. This is all the old mining site, Tony. All of this land used to belong to the Ballials, part of the rich Delaval family. Don't tread in the horse muck. It's just beside your feet there. Back in the day, before it was before religion kind of shrouded everything, it was classed as a medicinal well because it was so clean, a medicinal spring, an ancient pagan place of healing. The Christians renamed it, as I've mentioned, and then when a quarry opened in 1922, the well that had been there for, as I say, about 5,000 years was destroyed. Now, I have heard a few witch stories about the place. They're not true. I know when you hear like sacred ancient well, you maybe want to think that there was something to do with witches. But I couldn't find any named, any covens, and I checked all of the pagan sites that only if you're a pagan can you get access to. When you look here, you can still see that a lot of the mining gear, that's got proggy things that went where proggy things should never go. I'm not going to handle the goods in public, but you see, even things like this that have been used as fencing were actually used in the colliery. And if you can imagine this, with literally hundreds of people running in all directions, houses built especially for mining families all around here, we're on the ancient sacred bit. And when you think about it, it's just, even to this day, look at it, it's just kind of waste land in between the odd farmhouse. Yet we're heading to what's essentially a slag heap that claimed the lives of 3 young boys. Careful with these, Tony, as well, they're a bit snaggy. Gorse bushes. I say a bit snaggy. Everything in nature seems to just want to kick back and hurt you at times. And here we are, we're there, we're actually at it, Tony. This whole area here. Now, back in the days of the mines, this area, but more especially there, if you can imagine, you see the rise? That's actually the spoil heap, or what's left of the spoil heap. When you're mining and you're digging stuff up, a lot of this, you just pile all of your waste into one place, and it was here. Now the spoil heap, according to the National Coal Board, was 3 times as high as that. Now imagine how much spoil, wasted stuff you can't use, you would need to triple the size of that. We're going to the top of the heap, as we'd be expected to be top of the heap. But this is where some kids died. Now, even just poking through the land, you can see spoil, which is just pieces of stone, pieces of rock. But back in the day, it also used to be bits of coal. I've just picked something off the top of my hat that had legs. Don't know what it was, but I've hid it away. But as you can see, this is a trail that a lot of people have obviously used. But if you look down the hill, Tony, you can see that's fairly steep. Yeah, well, the whole thing was immensely high, and that's where we're heading. But you can get a good view of the main yard itself. Got to be a little bit careful. Now the spoil heap that Tony's pointing at now, where we're heading, across like a mini spoil heap valley that we're walking towards. There's a few people about because it's still quite early. A spoil heap and a story of collapse. Look at this. Look at it. We'll just walk around the crest, Tony. We don't need to necessarily to go up there. That's where we actually filmed that though. Do you see the spoil heap opposite? You can see there's a track, like a little brown track that leads up. Right next to the brown track, there's a spoil track, which shows you what's beneath the surface. It's stones, it's bits of coal. And back in the day, a lot of the poor families that lived around here had very little money. So what they did, they would come to the spoil heap with buckets and old brown sacks, and they would try and collect as much coal as they possibly could, little scraps, and exactly the same practice that people down in places like Dordon and Seaham used to go down to the coast and try and pick up sea coal in sacks and buckets. You're directly in front of one of the spoil tracks, and they're all the way around here, and the spoil beneath it isn't quite as pretty as the gravel that they've put as an example of it. But it was on one of these heaps that they'd kept pouring and pouring and pouring spoil and waste. And then in 1878, the spoil collapsed. And probably 300 to 500 ton of spoil just crashed down to the ground. Now, to the best of everybody's knowledge, nobody was hurt. Just there was a tremendous thundering noise. And from that heap there, remember that was much larger, tons and tons and tons and tons of rock just started pouring down. Now it's said that it was within sight of the winding house, which of course is to your right hand side. So where Tony is with the camera right now is probably where most of that stone ended up, falling onto the ground. Parents came round over the next few days saying, 3 of my kids are missing. They came to the spoil heap. They came to collect some coal for the family, because even though it was a spoil heap, it still had bits of coal in it, and the kids would come and pick through and select the bits of coal that would burn. And right here at this spot, and this is the nearest one to the winding house, so I'm presuming this is it here. Now, I know they've done this as much for design as anything else, but if you look at this kind of thing, you know, like huge pieces of stone, imagine 25,000 of them all coming down the hill at once. 3 children missing, the parents saying, have you seen my bairns? Have you seen my bairns? 3 of them died. and it's believed that it was in this vicinity. Now, we have had 2 stories sent to me at Robson's World saying, why don't you go down to the Fenwick pit around the outsides? We've seen all kinds of things. Now, hearing the sound of children playing in this vicinity is common. I'm listening. I would love to hear them. If they are playing, I would like confirmation of that. But people have said they've seen children too playing on the hill and then they're gone. Now, in reality, if there are real kids running around, that's exactly what happens. You see them and then they're gone. So that's no guarantee. This was the first place I thought, do we get sucky out here? Do we necromance here? Do we give it a try? It's a bit late.
Necromance might work.
Necromance, let's give that a go then. I know. Don't want to start another sitting on pebbles. Oh, that's not good for the hemorrhoids. Fortunately, my bottom is spotless of such things. Right, well, let's see if it is a bit early but at least Sucky's not weighing my shoulders down. He's sitting down too, so let's see what the necromancer says. The 3 children, incidentally, that died here, we know their names. William Hodge was an 8-year-old boy. Abigail Pooley, 6-year-old little girl, and Richard Dunn, who was 11. So we know they lost their lives and they were never seen again after they were here. We know they were here. And then all of a sudden, the slag heap or the spoil heap, if you prefer, took their lives. So let's see. Is there anything here? Oh. William. Abigail. Richard? Yes. I wish it was that easy. Oh, there's a little girl there though. Nice bells, that was fast. If that's real, well maybe people don't do this kind of thing here. I've just heard a boy's voice say William. I've heard a little girl's voice. I would love to think that was Abigail, the 6-year-old. And Richard, the 11-year-old, it sounded like an older boy saying William. Now, I could be wrong. What do you guys think? Close to 70 people died here. We have many of their stories tonight. All real, all true. Tony is filming the grounds as best he could because we're told that there's spirit here. People often see the ghosts, the moving figures of pitmen. Give me a name. It was amazing. When we first switched on, we got William straight away and Richard, maybe Richard calling his name. And we heard a little girl talking. Are you there, Richard? Richard? William? Abigail? If you have a different name, tell me your name then, if you're there. David. Aye. Pitman David? What happened here? What happened here? What happened here? I want to know who you are. If there is anyone here, talk to me. Yes. You sound very wealthy. What's your name? Give me a name. Give me a name. Abigail? Is that you, Abby? Is that Abigail? Dead. I know you're dead. Shit. I agree with you. Who else is here? Chances of us getting all three of them, like, it's ridiculous. She's scared, I just heard there. Give me your name. What are you called? What's your name? Help. So we just said, Jack. Hello, Jack. Want to talk to me, Jack? What happened here to you? Don't forget, if you make out anything more clearly than I'm getting at home, make sure you let us know the time and when. Aye. Just tell me what happened here, man. Something must have happened here. What was it? Death. Come on, last chance, we're moving on. Did you work underground? Did you work above ground? Talk to me. Right, enough for now. Enough for now. Not sure where Tony's disappeared to, but he'll be about. Let's up for the moment and move on. Oh, Tony's on top of the heap, and why not? Let's move on then, To. Watch your step on the way down. You're travelling the same direction that the spoil came, so be real careful. It's strange because this particular place where we are, just in the middle of nowhere really, and even back at the time that this was a busy colliery, the land around it was just being used for dumping stuff in between towns, dumping stuff in between rivers and households and farmhouses and farmland. And as you can see, it's people walk their dogs here and people come out for a walk, but the vast majority of the land has no other purpose. But back in the day, there's a story about Backworth that I think is absolutely amazing, and to be able to tell it on the ground where it happened is incredible. Back in the day, a lot of the churches hereabout were very, very keen to get their hands on sacred relics, something that belonged to somebody famous, a famous saint, a famous character out of the Bible. And churches all over Britain had them. In Britain, at one time, in the 1600s, 11 churches said that they had the head of John the Baptist on display in their church. Over 17,000 churches across Europe to this day believe that they all have wood that came from the actual cross that they nailed Jesus to. Well, first of all, most of that probably didn't happen, but they picked up a bit of wood and said, this is of the true cross. Come to church, you'll be able to see the true cross. We got some of it. And scientists said in 1974, and this is obviously like 50 odd years ago, he said, if you had all the bits of the so-called true cross, you'd have enough wood to build a bridge from Earth to the moon. There's so many people that believe they've got it. But it was claimed that the holy folk here had a genuine relic. And it's possible they could have. St. Cuthbert, his body, of course, was moved around the northeast a lot. And the priests that covered this area, this very area, which is now Backworth, Holywell, they had a dirty grey rag. To be honest, if you found it on the floor of a car workshop, you wouldn't think twice about it. But they had this filthy old rag. And they said it was part of the shroud, the death shroud of St. Cuthbert. And they would travel around the villages Tony, I've just seen someone walk across the path from one side to the other, just at the end of this row. Now, there's a distinct possibility it's a real person. But he walked in that, you see that? Do you see that green tree when there's bloody thousands of trees? You see the small green trees this side of the fence? You see there's one there, then there's a space, and then there's another one. The figure, I didn't see him come, but I just, oh. Are you getting any of this, or is it just me? I just saw a figure walk behind that tree, and I've just seen something move behind the bushes over here. Shine on. Now, I thought if it was a real person, they kind of get through the fence, can they? I'll show you where it was. But there's two sets of fences. Yeah. You see, when I was checking this out on Google Earth, there's still buildings here and there's plenty of places for you to get in, but not now. Yeah, it was just like, it just appeared here and walked across like this. Didn't stop, didn't look. Now, weirdly, and I think, I've never been here before, that's a track, isn't it? Look, you see? So back in the day, remember that fence wouldn't be there. And I think that's how people get into the site. They climb onto that, put their foot on the top and then jump. Not going to do that. Yeah, but this was a track. Now, if this was a track that miners used, oh, I'm just losing my mind. I don't know, but that stopped me in my tracks. And it was he a pitman? It didn't look like a pitman, didn't look like anything, just looked like a kind of a figure in grey trousers, greyish top. Could have had like a short sleeved white shirt on, and he just went and kept walking. And then I caught another glimpse of some movement as I was walking down, as if he'd gone in, as if he had a purpose. It didn't look like it was just somebody walking a dog. How weird. How weird. Yeah, well, we're looking. Anyway, back to that holy relic story as well. I know we get interrupted, and I know how irritating it can be when you're halfway through a tale. So anyway, these priests are coming around here carrying the holy cloth of St. Cuthbert with them so that they can show the men and women who lived in the small villages who couldn't travel to their church, and the priests would travel around on a horse and cart showing this holy artifact to everybody. People would want to kiss it, want to hold it, want to touch it, because they believed that if they did touch it or hold it, they could be cured of whatever it was ailed them. And there's one particular story, it's very famous, and it's about a young man who saw the horse and cart travelling around this land, this area here, and he flagged the horse and cart down, and said, Holy Fathers, my mother is blind. She can't see. And if only she could use St. Cuthbert's shroud to wash her face with, she would be cured. And the priests thought, well, you don't know whether the priests were wise enough to know that it's just a bit of old cloth. Let's say, extreme circumstances, it was part of his shroud. They said it was. The thing that makes me think it wasn't real is because nobody has a part of Cuthbert's shroud today, and it would have been held onto and looked after and placed in a church somewhere. Anyway, the two holy guys said, where's your mum live? Get on the cart. Oh yeah. Went. Do you hear voices there?
I heard voices definitely there.
So,
Kids laughing.
oh, good, really. You never know what you're going to get. I do hear kids laughing.
I heard kids laughing, definitely.
Wow. I'll get this damn story told. So they were on the cart with the holy men. They travelled to the small village, which is now Holywell, which is just along the road. They went to the woman's house. They used the cloth to bathe the woman's eyes. They then said, with the power of God invested upon me, and the power also of our holy Saint Cuthbert, you can now see. Instantly, it's a Christian story, as you can tell, instantly the woman could see perfectly again, which is amazing. So then everybody in every village that they went to for the next 3 to 4 years came running out to try and cure all of their ills. Diphtheria, polio, typhoid, plague. You get the gist. Whether they cured anybody else, nobody ever has reported, but a hell of a story. Let's tootle along here and see how far we get. I know we're going to be setting Suki up on the wagon way, which has got a great ghost story attached to it as well. You've got to watch your step here. The pit being cursed is fairly well known. Ever since that story about the holy men, it started pilgrims travelling here to see nothing in real terms, but hundreds and hundreds of pilgrims came down to try and get close to St. Cuthbert's sacred burial shroud. This whole area and the spoil heap that we're still walking by just shows you the tonnage, and it was only open for as near to 100 years. Opened in 1873, the Fenwick pit, closed 1973, close to 70 people died. Before that, there was a basic mine here and a bit of a quarry, and it was prone to flooding. And in 1842, The Alexander brothers, two young lads, Thomas and his brother Andrew, were asked. Now I'm told that it's this side of the spoil heap. So let me catch up to where Tony is and I'll tell you the story, because there's like death and... You're taking the piss. What is that? There's a child shaped something just along the path. Tony, can you see a little kid along the track, right hand side in the distance? Can you see anything? There's a kid there. I'm not kidding. There's a kid there. Can you see him? There. Little shadows. This side of the track, approximately this high. I thought, when people... There! Did you see flash of light? Oh, come on, Tony. You know, when people tell you, come to this place, and I look on a map and there's nothing here, really, you know, normally we were spoiled the other day. We did Newcastle upon Tyne, where there's something amazing to see everywhere you turn your head. That is amazing. There's two shadowy things. They're moving now. Oh, I hope people at home can see that. If you've got it up on your big TV, blow it up. We're also on a major aeroplane route. That's about the 9th plane I've seen in the last 10 minutes. But look at that. Do you hear that?
Yeah.
Kid's voice is coming from there too. Oh, come on. Hi! Hello? Is this?
I think. There's another fence on that side.
Yeah, I see it.
This is going down here. I might go back to the road side.
Tony, to be quite honest, I'd be more prone to go back where we've been, but let's see how far this takes us first. Because along here, I was told to follow this track, and when you get into the middle of the gorse, which is this yellow stuff, now I think without going out of here, take a left to the gorse. That's because they've seen... I can't believe those shadows up there. That was amazing. It says you've got to walk into the middle of the gorse. And you hear the sound of two dead little boys. A few birds about. Blackbirds, birds of ill omen. It says when you see the track coming down from the left, that's it there, isn't it? That's it there, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now apparently, two young children can be seen coming down that track. Oh, the birds are guiding us. It says, what they actually said was, watch out for go to the middle of the gorse bushes until a trail comes down from the spoil heap, and that's there. People on bikes. That was real people there. But just up this trail, the Alexander brothers, two young lads. Now, this apparently, this area here, and I know we're a fair way away from the other pit site. This makes sense. Down here, Tony, here it is. Look at this. You see? Solid stone. But you see, it's placed stone, isn't it? Right the way up here. They say that this was part of the old railway line. Looks like it very, very, very much could be. They say part of the railway line, but more importantly, before the railway was here, before that whole pit was here, before Fenwick Pit, back in the earlier days, in the 1780s, 90s, into the 1800s, there was an old, very, very basic pit here. And it flooded time and time and time and time again, which is why they moved their main operation from over here to over there. Now, if you look at the National Coal Board site, it'll tell you the story of the Alexander brothers. Two young lads ordered by their colliery foreman to come to this pit, the basic pit, that they were trying to make a bit of money from while they were building the other pit, and they sent them down onto a seam. Now, they knew that this pit flooded a lot, and they weren't sure why it flooded. There's two burns. There's the Seaton burn. Oh, and there's another burn. Bear with me a second. And Briardine burn in this area. While they were digging down, occasionally they'd break through a wall and all of the water from the burn would pour into the pit. Well, for the two Alexander boys, you've got to remember what it was like. We're not, back then, late 1700s, early 1800s, we weren't talking about highly mechanised anything. Anything you did underground, you had to dig out with your bare hands. And about a third of your workforce were kids. Some of them 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old. I mean, amazing, amazing. Go into a primary school today and say, okay, I'm looking for 2 dozen of you to work down the pit. And that's exactly what they did back in the day, to bring a bit of extra money into poor households. And poor people would send their children to do that. The rich obviously didn't have to bother. So the two Alexander brothers were said, okay, you two, get down. We've opened up a new seam. So you had the pit seam of the time. This is according to the coal board. They had a seam that ran along about 30 feet below the earth. No cage to get there. You literally had to climb down ladders to get there. When they were in that seam, some land broke away underneath the seam. So you've got the seam of coal, and then underneath the seam, there was this narrow little tunnel. And they sent the Alexander boys down there, hacking away, and they found an immensely clean seam of coal. Well, that's more money. Get into it, get into it. Push the coal behind you. Somebody then comes in, puts it in buckets, pulls it along, sends it out to be sold. However, one of the Alexander boys hit a wall. Either the Briardine or the Seaton burn, the water poured through and the two lads were drowned. Now the eldest boy, I can give you their names, Thomas and Andrew. Thomas was 24 years of age, his brother was 14, and they both drowned where they were because they'd pushed so much coal behind them. When the water started to come in, there wasn't even enough room to turn around, and even if they had turned around, they'd then have to push all of that coal back behind them again while it filled up with water. 14 is not by any stretch the age of the youngest person to die here. But the story of the old pit, which is this, and if you look around, you would never think there was anything here. Just looks like waste, scrap land, and I can't get over this track. Because this is where the Alexander brothers are said. I mean, you talk about ghost stories. There's only one story about the Alexander brothers ghost, and it's on a fairly obscure coal board website, but you can't find it. But they're there somewhere with us, I hope, spending a bit of time with us. I'd love to think so. Come on, come out with us. I'd love to think you would. The whole nature of this place changes when it gets dark, doesn't it, Tony? I want to go back and see if those kids are still coming out. Bits of cobweb holding all of the... Look at that, there's an entire cobweb with a spider on it just hanging on that one tiny strand. I don't know whether you can make it out. Too small for technology. Now, we're just here next to a fairly main road, which is why we heard, or how we heard, those cyclists. The moon is out. It's one of those moons that you can sit on and fish off when there's a film. I'm going to go back to where we were and get Sucky out. Pointless me carrying him without making best use of him. So along here, I've already seen a couple of things that I can't explain. Hopefully some of you caught what I was getting. You wouldn't, I don't think Tony's camera was pointing in the direction where I saw that figure, but it definitely was when we heard children playing. The sky to the left is absolutely flame red through the trees. Don't know how easily you can make that. I think the saddest part of all of this is, this just looks like it could be any hill anywhere in Britain, couldn't it, this? But it's weirdly a grave now for those 3 bairns that went missing. The bodies were never found. I mean, once you've got several 100,000 tons of earth, where do you start looking? They did have a scrapple through the fall when it happened, but there's no money in it. And you know, that's probably the reason. You've had a fall of ground, so a few miners come out and say, what, there's children in there. So they use their picks and they move a few ton of earth. They don't find anything. And then the governors of the pit say, how do we even know there were kids there? Oh, well, we don't. Get them back to work. The children didn't make money for the pit. I mean, you like to think that in more modern times there'd have been a bit more caring about it. It's kind of like almost being on Saddleworth Moor, you know, where there's at least one more body buried from Myra Hindley and Voices. But it's just, wherever there's ground where the bodies of children have not been found, it's the saddest thing. How can a parent ever get closure if you never find the remains of what came from you? Absolutely tragic. Tony, we're heading close to where we saw the ghost kid, so I'll let you go first for this bit. Don't know whether you've noticed how many horses' hooves are down here as well. There's an awful lot. When the whole place was finally built, the pit had 4 terraces of houses built for the pitmen and their families. When they were demolished in the 1960s, the back end of the 1960s, there were dozens of ghost stories. Now, we've often mentioned when talking about spirit that if you change the energy of a building, if you close a door off or build a kitchen that's got a different shape, the energies that exist in those houses can no longer travel the way that they already have for years. So suddenly you get a blast of ghostly activity. Well, that's what happened when they demolished the 2 terraces, or the 4 terraces of pit houses. I mean, ghosts so clearly seen by so many people that the Evening Chronicle ran 2 stories on them, the Journal ran a story on them, the Sunday Sun ran a story on them, and there was a tinier story in the Northern Echo. Now, this is where we saw the guy walk across the fence. So the kiddies, and there's no sign of them, I can't see them in the torchlight here, but it wasn't far from here, was it? Probably about another 50 or 60 yards along the track. It was almost like 2 kids had come running down. Can you remember when we did that railway arch? Yes. And we got all of that response? Yeah. It was kind of like, and do you remember when just as we were leaving this place where we'd made absolute certain communication, that we were just leaving, and it was almost like it didn't want us, whatever was there didn't want us to leave. It was almost like you're going the wrong way. And the kids were coming out saying, oh, we're here. That already. Oh, we haven't even, oh, come on. We're just going to get Suki started here. Then we're going to hit the wagon way, which is probably the most haunted bit. We're also going to find out why in the late 1800s this was called the cursed pit on cursed land, and the stories are amazing. I'd love to share them with you. Do come with us. If you're not a subscriber, well, frankly you should be. If you're not a subscriber, please do. It's coppers a week, let's say 2-3 quid. And how much?
£3 a month, not a week.
£3, I beg your pardon. £3 a month, even better. And you get all the stuff that we've done. So please do. How do they go about doing it, Tony? Nice and slow so everybody can follow your footsteps.
If you're on YouTube, just click join. There's a button, join, under the video, or there's a link in the video description on Facebook and YouTube. You can follow that and join that way as well. Easy.
And we're going to set up here because we've had better responses here than we quite often have when we're doing even more famous places. I was told by half a dozen people that this place, if you're looking for spirit, this is where to come. And I've looked at it and I stared at it, and I was planning to go to a place called Geysens because Maz suggested that we should, but we found it was on private land, so we couldn't do it. So at the last moment, I looked through the paperwork that you guys have sent, and you swore, come here and you'll get a result. For me, we've already had a couple of results. And what the hell? All the hair on the back of my neck just went out. Let's go and try Suki out up here. Yeah, we're back, and as you can see, the shape of the winding house. You know, we're pretty lousy at looking after our industrial heritage, because that's what this is. It's part of the lives of so many. It's where people died, where people's families literally scratched a living from underground.